I think it's insane. Like if OpenAI is worth $1 trillion and Nvidia is worth 10, at least, like there's no way that they're worth $1 trillion, because you remember Meta's only worth like 1.5. Do you think $1 trillion is crazy?
No, it's completely bonkers.
Okay.
And I mean, can you imagine the PE? They don't make any money.
You can't. There is no PE. There's no earnings. There's no earnings.
Founder and CEO of More Insights and Strategy, Patrick Moorhead.
6, 5.
CEO of the Futurum Group,
Daniel Newman.
6, 5.
Do we know what we're talking about, Moorhead?
We absolutely know what we're talking about.
Oh boy, those like 10 seconds right before the show starts are the best part. I'm so glad though the recording isn't actually on, because it would be like great blackmail material later. But
No. Let's tell everybody. I think
always privy. You know, there's a couple of things that tend to happen right before the camera goes off.
I think I said I might be going bankrupt and cashless, but boy, do I love to have a good workout. It makes everything good.
Yeah. I mean, I think the hyperbole and the kind of these comments that we make, I do not expect to see you as one of those people walking around shouting on 2nd Street anytime soon in Austin. But I do think that people tend to never understand what the real gyrations of being an entrepreneur are, the highs and the lows. And when it's high, it's like, oh my God, the world is our oyster. And then on those days that it's low, it is absolutely burning to the ground. And I don't think, many people that have not, people companies, by the way, finance their own businesses. I'm not talking about people that raise other people's money. I'm talking about people that have built companies, put it all on their own backs. So that is super fascinating. But the overall, just the stuff that gets said right before, because the other thing that tends to happen right before we open is you remind me to do a good job. Like every time you're like, Dan, take this seriously. Everybody that's watching, it's like generally I don't plan to come and show up and do well. So Pat reminded me, you remember that, what was that tweet I sent you last night? That was actually really funny. You didn't respond to it, but the one I sent you, that Ben Horowitz on the brilliant advice you get from your investors, one of my favorite parts, my favorite pieces of advice I got, and I got like 27 times, they'd say, look, here's the key, hire A players. And I was like, okay, yeah, my plan was to hire a bunch of morons, but I'm going to instead. It's like, yes, I plan to come on and do terrible every week. And I really appreciate, Pat, that you always do remind me. But
yeah, I did not remind you this time, because I think I was the one who was scowling.
Yeah, well, you did come in with a pump. So, I mean, we haven't talked as much about that lately. I think some of that has probably been due to the litany of little setbacks. Most of them, I think, are overcomeable, if that's a word. But you've definitely, after a couple of amazing years of kind of clean health, weight loss, muscle building, you did find your age for a minute, even though you look younger. I think that incline bench, you maybe went down just a little too far. Those leg presses, you maybe just pushed a little too much weight.
I got to tell you, though, I'm shooting more peptides than I ever had before. And in fact, I'm taking it right into the injured areas, which are two. So I re-injured my hernia, I re-injured my shoulder. But I have a thesis on it that I've heard from 2 people that I will share with you later, which is I was doing a full gut reset, like triple layer, the biggest one I'd ever done before. I was making fun of my doctor when he warned me about it, but it hit me in the last week. And then my trainer and my nutritionist said, I really think it was all the inflammation that you created while it was on that affected your shoulder and your hernia. And so it was crazy that both of them said that independently. So my trainer and my nutritionist. So we'll see. I ended it on Saturday, and we will see if I bounce back. In the middle, I'm shooting TB 500 and HCG right into the affected area.
HCG or BPC?
Sorry, BPC. Sorry.
Okay. I was like, I don't know if more test signal is going to help, but I guess having more tests could never hurt. By the way, I watched that Charlie Sheen special on Netflix. Just everybody out there, wow, what a we don't have time to go into that one, but Yeah, I remember Tiger Blood. So it was he was at like I think he told me it was like 2,000 or 3,000 was his test levels. He was rubbing on the cream and doing blow all day. That was what his like it was testosterone and cocaine. It was wild. The story was great. Like getting underneath it. I watched it on the flight this week. By the way, what a week! I mean, you were out Sunday. I mean, at lunchtime. The GTC pregame show, which God, you were like on every gosh darn billboard in that place. I was there. I was like, I feel like I know a celebrity. Is that like who is that guy? Is um, talk shows. It was great to see you everywhere, but it was a lot of work, right? I mean, that was like real. That kind of reminds me of back when we did that Dell event. You got like pre meetings. Every segment was thought about. Every interview was this was not a hey, just sit at this desk and talk to people.
I did not know exactly what I was walking into, which was a full live broadcast interviewing 16 people with interstitials, Jensen coming up on stage. But it was it was well worth it. I met a lot of really important people. I got to know Brad Gershner well, a bunch of VCs. Probably the toughest segment for me, Daniel, was the first one, where I'm on stage literally rocking 5 VCs and 1 industry analyst, me. Many of them are billionaires and I am not. And, they use a different language. They use a different, ontology and how they look at the world. And I am pretty much a meat and potatoes guy, right? As opposed to what they're doing in venture. The interesting thing about them, I don't even think venture is venture anymore because they're putting in a lot of investments into public companies, right? Brad and Altimeter has a very hardcore investment into Nvidia, among other public companies. But yeah, in 3.5 hours, interviewed 16 people across venture, across infrastructure, meaning power, cooling, all the way to the grid, science and quantum, robotics and manufacturing, and yeah, it was really exceptional.
Yeah, it was nice. I will admit I came early. I brought my pom poms. I was there to cheer. I was really happy for you to be up there on the big stage. I'm not going to lie, I didn't mind not doing the work. I always liked the attention. I won't lie about that, but I didn't mind. It sounded listening to you like a lot of work, like the scriptedness. You and I are so fluid. We don't have a script most of the time when we talk. We maybe have like 5 talking points for our questions, but like you almost had to play the role of like John Ford. You were almost like had to, but you did a great job. So at least in your path between now and when you become a billionaire, sir, you can always become a news broadcaster. You have that.
My biggest takeaway, but by the way, the best events were the small events, right? I was in 2 events where it was maybe 50 people, which include Jensen and all the different speakers. But I did get a signed book from Jensen. Looks like him, not an auto pen. And I was invited to an exclusive dinner or I don't even know what you call it, reception with big leaders where Jensen gave this amazing, inspiring stump speech. But
and then like 5 minutes later, he was in South Korea doing like arm lapped shots with the CEO of Sam. I mean, that guy.
He was supposed to do the keynote for the Google Public Cloud Summit, Public Sector Summit, and he, he did talk about, Trump wanted him to come to Korea with him, right? And he, the day of his keynote, but I think he left early to go do that. I think what's not being written about is the time that he spent with President Trump there.
Yeah, there seemed to be some movement there between, and we'll talk about that here. And by the way, like you and I could talk a lot, and this is kind of fun to just riff, but I'm sure our audience wants us to get to business a little bit. So yeah, so the great show, we always do our show 3 segments. We get the Decode breaking down the week. We've started a little bit ahead of time here. we do the flip where Pat beats me in a simulated argument, and then we do bulls and bears, which again, there's no shortage of things this week because there has been a ton of earnings this week as well. Pat, we're going to hit GTC. We're going to hit on OpenAI, surprise news. We're going to hit on Qualcomm launching an AI chip, so many more things. Let's stop teasing our poor audience and stop sharing all the blitherings and blatherings of our life. And let's get to the decode. Well, you sort of started to tease it. Couldn't help ourselves. But Pat, why don't you do your... There's no way the GTC breakdown could be the entire show. So in a few minutes, give me the top sort of hits from GTC for you.
Yeah. So first off, I've been to almost every GTC since its inception. Obviously, I didn't attend when I was at AMD, but this was definitely the best one yet in terms of the keynote and I think the content. Jensen was very clear. He was concise. He didn't drift. And, it's so funny. He made some jokes in these small groups that said, hey, my family tells me not to be boring, right? And what he's trying to do is educate, right? I can relate to that. My best critics and supporters are my family on the pod. So biggest things for me is the build out of the infrastructure. Okay. Right now, by the way, there's no math that makes sense to be able to build enough infrastructure yet related to power and cooling. So one of the most interesting things is what NVIDIA is doing is they are co-architecting power systems, water systems, and manufacturing systems to with NVIDIA technologies to do the build out. So you've got a company like Vertiv, Siemens, GE Vernova. Think of GE Vernova as grid folks and all the different ways, and also power creation outside the fence. Think of GE Vernova and Vertiv as inside the fence, right? So, and Siemens being the software that basically manages these things. So that was a big thing for me. And it got me thinking, what do all of NVIDIA's competitors do, right? My guess is that they're going to have to, back in the old days, it used to be, hey, you're a socket stealer, right? Like you're playing into an ecosystem that somebody created. Kind of like AMD versus Intel in the early days with CPUs. So I think the only choice that the competitors have to do is to work inside of the NVIDIA infrastructure to make this work. Second big announcement, just when I thought AMD was going to run the table in supercomputers, as they did an announcement the day before, I think NVIDIA announced 7 supercomputers, DOE, Argonne. So it was just absolutely a mind blower. Something that I'm sure that you had your eyes on with your investment audience was this 500 billion AI chip bookings. Okay, and there's a lot of questions on, was this going to be for the year? But it was over the lifetime, I believe, of Blackwell. Over 5 quarters. Is that right, Daniel?
I think it is the next 5 quarters, and it includes the rest of Blackwell and possibly some early Rubin bookings, was the way he sort of explained it. But it's this visibility between now and the end of 26 to the order book.
Yeah, and my final comment to give you some air here is Jensen ended the show by saying NVIDIA is helping to make America great again. And I think that encapsulates everything, right? It's about building. It's about manufacturing here in the United States. I mean, Foxconn building gigantic factories here in the United States for AI servers. It was about creating enough energy. And if you remember, I was at an event, winning the AI race, where Trump showed up, where he did some EOs on permitting for things like energy. But here's the open loop, guys. There is not enough energy. The backlog of even natural gas generators for electricity. I mean, the lead time is 5 years. So I don't know how we're going to get here. There was a lot of talk about, moonshot, right, here. So that's more research to do. But what a show.
Yeah, in the vast wasteland of media appearances I made, I kept saying, I think you said something similar, that was probably Jensen's best GTC keynote. He didn't do the drift that he does as much. He was still funny and pithy at times, but he didn't drift into into these sort of tangents, and he stayed on, he had a lot to announce. He sort of broke all the different businesses down. He broke down high performance compute. He broke down quantum. He broke down edge. In telco. He broke down autonomy and robotics. He broke, data centers, and he really kind of showed all the different places that Nvidia is going to play. And I like the fact that he kind of took the bubble babble on heads on. He took it on directly, kind of said what it is, called what it is, explained what it is. And I think that's important right now. I think he talked a lot about the collaboration of the ecosystem and all the contributors that are part of this. You mentioned some of the ODMs, Pat, and those participating in this process, the OEMs participating, the ISVs, the partnerships. And in each one, he sort of highlighted a couple of different partnerships, highlighted Nokia, made an investment there. People are like, oh, should he be investing? Well, yes. I mean, he wants the AI-powered 5G, 6G edge to be built on NVIDIA. So a small investment in one of the leading players to help make that possible. I think that's smart money. I mean, that's a smart use when you have the kind of balance sheet that Jensen has access to reinvest it into the areas you want to succeed. He's doing the same thing in quantum. He's doing the same thing with, AI factory buildouts. I thought he did a good job of sort of bringing a relevant visibility to the metaverse, omniverse, with a real use case, which is what? Actually designing and building these AI factories using technology. Like, that is a really reasonable and useful example of how that technology can help. These projects are incredibly complicated. And to actually be able to render them and simulate them and be able to validate them before you shovel them, put a shovel into the ground, that's really powerful. So I thought it was a really well done keynote. I think that $500 billion number is what sent the stock parabolic. In the middle of it was, I think I calculated they could do like 300 billion next year in revenue. And that would mean over 150 billion in income at the rate they perform. And it is another indicator that the AI market is bigger than the forecasts. It's actually larger than all the forecasts we've seen so far, which means more upwards revisions, not just for NVIDIA, but for all the companies that touch NVIDIA. So it's a big one. A lot more we could talk about, but there's a lot more to talk about. So I'm going to head on to OpenAI and Microsoft. I think that's a worthwhile one. So, a lot of people are kind of confused as to what that original partnership was. I believe Microsoft put something like 12 or $13 billion in two different investments up to this point. That had given them basically a 50-50 partnership with OpenAI for their it's not super intelligence. What do you call it? AGI, non-AGI. And the idea was they were going to do a profit share or something with everything that up to AGI. Obviously, there's nothing to share in profit when you burn as much capital as OpenAI is. And so one of the things is there's a non-for-profit OpenAI and Microsoft have been in this ongoing, somewhat tenuous at times, negotiation to figure out what does that structure look like. And as OpenAI's valuation has risen to nearly $500 billion, and I believe this week there was an announcement that the IPO might be coming as soon as next year for $1 trillion. Satya could turn that 12 or 13, it might, don't quote me on the exact, billion into something like 270 billion at that point. Because the renegotiation, and this will now allow Sam Altman to convert to a for-profit, then convert to be able to an IPO, to about a 27% ownership stake in the company. Pat, that's a massive sea change, and it's, I think, a good one for both companies. I think that this gets the the hangover of that original deal off of Sam's back, gives him flexibility to do what he needs to do. I also think for Satya, it shows it was a master chess move to become the largest shareholder, to have a ton of control over the company, and he benefits from every deal that OpenAI ends up making. And like I said, whether they make money or not, I expect that massive IPO to ring the register for Satya and team. So I'll give you a little back. There's a couple other OpenAI items. I don't know if you want to talk on the Microsoft thing. I'll give you this topic to sort of run with.
I don't have a whole lot to add. I heard, I had a couple press hit me up saying, hey, Sam doesn't have any equity in the go forward profit company. That just seems like complete nonsense to me. Did you pull anything out of that? Have you been following this at all?
I have been following it. I like you have a hard time believing that to be the case, but I think until we start to see filings of how things are broken up, and is it, held in some other entity? Is there some sub entity that Sam has a piece of? I feel like that's probably been part of the ongoing negotiation, but I seriously doubt he's going to walk away with this thing with nothing.
Such nonsense. OpenAI did make a claim that said it was going to have an AI researcher that what I call is first principle, meaning it actually thinks on its own. So think of it as AGI for research. I'm a little skeptical, given that you do have to train it how to think, and it's going to train based on how people think. But I'm the first one to say that maybe I don't understand the technology well enough. They're certainly not going to do it with ChatGPT 5 in 2025. So we're looking at 2028, which means it could be ChatGPT 8. Will need to be a new type of technology that's created to be able to do this. So the claim is that it just won't hoover data and learn. It's only going to be as good as the data. It will learn how to think. So I will see it when I see the research papers about a different way of doing this, but it certainly would be amazing because we could get cures for cancer. We could get, new drugs quicker. I had some pretty incredible people on stage at the Nvidia event who one was genome and the other was pharmaceutical. And then at the small groups, met with Eli Lilly's chief scientist that talks about today how much they're shrinking the time to trial. Trial time is still 2-3 years plus, but the ability to get there with a drug that's more likely to work than not is being improved by this technology.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although I like the direction, I'm still skeptical on some of the time horizons. The generation to generation improvements we're getting are becoming more and more iterative from ChatGPT to Chat. Like, where the first few were so, revolutionary. I think we're seeing, and by the way, this is a good thing in many ways, like, because we're getting that kind of meaningful improvement. Pat, lately, the AI slop word has become the popular bear thesis. It's just slop. And there is some of that. But the thing about it is everything gets better every day. Literally every single day as we continue to use this stuff, the outputs get better. And so, while people are right that some of the stuff is slop, I see some analysts in our field that are posting X posts that are clearly just written by a chatbot, right? Absolutely garbage. But at the same time, like with what we've built on our platform, and I know you've been building some interesting stuff with Pico, Patrick Jr. He's big now, man. He's crushing it. But as we continue using it, the things it's generating become better and better and better. And the timeline in which this stuff's improving is like days, weeks now. So I think the whole idea that he can't get there, but I also don't you see, like, it's funny because him and Elon are always feuding. But don't you see a little bit of similarities in kind of the promises they're making of when things can get done versus like the reality? But yet they're still change makers. They're doing really impressive stuff. So it's like like I said, I think the Don Lemon interview where Elon said that I build the future and you just react to it. I can't take any more. I got to be humbled a little bit by that because that's a lot of what we do. We react to the work other people do. It's still fun though. I still like what we do, except the days that you feel, what did you say, bankrupt and on the streets or whatever. However you started this pod.
Yeah, bankrupt and cashless.
Cashless, which that's sure is too bad. All right, hey, here's another one. I have been quite outspoken that I think Qualcomm's future is not in handsets, that they had to make a pivot to edge, AI, robotics, and data center. Well, Pat, this week, AI 200, 250, it came out, stock went surging. There's been some critics, there's been some complimenters. Kind of what was your read on this launch from Qualcomm?
Yeah, Qualcomm has done an amazing job diversifying their business model. They're definitely up there in the top 3 of the ability to get into other businesses quickly and be successful, right? You have the automotive, you have IoT, TBD on driving a ton of revenue on the PC side. They definitely shook it up there, but here is, and I like to simplify this by just saying, if you want Wall Street to react favorably, get into a market that they are watching and putting premiums on, and then do it credibly. Stock popped about 20%, came down to, I think we're at about a 6% adder here. And by the way, that was with almost no detail, okay? No technical detail. They do have a customer called Humane, but there were no details technologically. And the ones that matter is the amount of processing power, but in a scale-up methodology, the type of networking that they're using. There's going to be a lot of options, particularly in 2027 for scale-up technologies, eSun, UA Link. I mean, there's going to be they are an NVLink Fusion adopter as well. So I feel pretty comfortable in 2027 that they'll have a scale up. What I find particularly interesting is, first of all, they're scaling their NPU technology likely in this AI 200, which is in smartphones. I don't think there's anybody else that's doing that. They're either starting from scratch or they take something that's a beast and then try to narrow it down to be more power efficient. I find that super interesting. The other thing is this AI 250 is going to be this near memory technology. There weren't any details on this, but what I will tell you is that I have talked to a lot of particularly RISC-V accelerator companies, and it's a very symbiotic relationship with the processor as well as the hardened NPU or AI accelerator silicon that gives you different levels of programmability, but really good bandwidth. And then on the cost side, right, we're basically sold out until 2027, I think, on HBM. This uses LPDDR on the AI 250. So the amount of memory that you can put on any one accelerator with the lowest latency does give you an advantage. But I need to see, I'd like to see more details before I can, Babe Ruth this or put my percentage of possibility that this could be a big success. Having Humane as a customer, I don't know if it's an ink deal or an LOI. I'd like to think that there is some NRE that's changing hands where Humane and other potential customers are paying Qualcomm upfront for all of the R&D work. But in the end, more competition is better, and I wish good luck to the folks at Qualcomm.
My read, Pat, is win big while winning small. We've got that 583 billion number. We heard Jensen up the number for even just next year in terms of Capex expected. Realistically, we could see $1 trillion a year in AI chip infrastructure spend by 2030. There's kind of this breakdown. I don't think LPDDR is going to be a training. It doesn't have without the HBM. I don't think it's going to compete on the large training opportunities, Pat. But I think this is a inference machine, and I think what Qualcomm is good at is efficiency. So if you look at what Qualcomm can do on a smartphone and what they're going to try to do in the data center, and people will go, well, they didn't succeed in the past. Okay, that's fine. But AMD had some fits and starts with its data center work. And by the way, Nvidia wasn't until it was. So let's get over the fact of what things were. I think it's a different company with different IP, different engineering, a different opportunity. But I think, Pat, 1 or 2%. I keep saying win 1 or 2%. This is all Qualcomm has to do to drive a $10 billion diversification to their business. And I think with these Middle East relationships, I think alone, and this, by the way, even like Grok, how they've been able to succeed. There's something in that market where there's companies that just want these inference machines, these token machines. And I actually think there's a story, if Qualcomm plays their cards right, that they are complementary to Nvidia. They can be complementary to the big training clusters. And they can just say, look, we're just adding inference capacity, and we're adding massive, lower cost, higher efficiency inference capacity. I think that story could land. I think they could land that story with some of the neo cloud, some of the hyperscalers, some of the Middle East deployments. Depending on policy in China, I'm sure they would be able to be successful in China if that ever opened up again. Qualcomm's huge there. So I think there's a lot of different plays. We are going slow today. Let's hit the next one really quickly, Pat. You mentioned that Nvidia Supercomputer, announcements, but the DOE was busy this week. Another $1 billion partnership to make 2 more supercomputers with AMD. This has been AMD. The word I use has been a juggernaut in high performance compute. Chris Wright has been very busy. I believe he got a big shout out from Jensen. He's getting one from Lisa. And this is all about basically winning science in the United States. They want to, everything from nuclear power, fusion, science, drug discovery, energy. We want to win in these categories. The government is making investments, and AMD, my quick read here is continue to prove that it's the company to beat in this category.
Yeah, I got invited to the event on Monday where Lisa Su was speaking. Unfortunately, I couldn't go. I'm really interested. This makes a lot of sense to me, primarily given AMD has a 64-bit precision part, which if you are doing flops versus tops, it's the most important thing. You can't do supercomputing with 4-bit. What is happening is there is a transition to add a lot of AI, hence what the big, the 7 supercomputers that NVIDIA announced. But no, it's very good to see. I'm interested to see for earnings what the impact is to AMD financially.
And does the market care? That's another big thing. It just feels like right now, when we get to earnings, we'll talk about Amazon and these companies. It's all about the data center right now. I mean, this stuff's really interesting. I just don't know how much it computes. Speaking of companies that reported this week, we're not going to hit the earnings just yet. But what about the job cuts at Amazon? What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I still am not convinced that every one of these job cuts is because of AI. We hired so many people during the P word that I'm not going to use because, we get filtered on it. But I still think we hired way too many people, and we will see what the real reason for those layoffs is. I know you're bullish on the AI layoffs part.
I don't think bullish is the right word. I just think I'm honest about it, at least honest in my own mind.
What's more interesting to me is just when people said that Amazon was out and I have been saying absolutely continuously, AWS, announced that Anthropic's going to use 1 million Trainiums, right? I knew that they had some big announcements. I think this gives more credibility. It's so funny. I see so many people, particularly on X, dishing it out to AWS, and I'm always thinking, you people don't have any idea what you're talking about. And I don't think AWS is done yet. I mean, we've got reInvent coming up, and oh, by the way, the largest build out company in the next few years is Amazon. What customers and what use cases are they building those out for? We will see.
It's interesting. I think that they are replacing dollars, meaning tokens are productivity. And so what I do think is happening is it's becoming like, we're thinking of it all as Capex, but it's actually, they're thinking of it as OpEx. There was another note that came out this week that talked about how basically Amazon wants to automate like 75% of its workforce. Okay. So they've been very upfront about what they're doing and what their intent is. Having said that, I think you're also right. I think Jassy actually said himself that this was culture. They want to flatten the organization. It had gotten too steep. We've both worked with Amazon. I think we could both probably add some comment to the bureaucracy that's been created as it's become a larger company. Hard to get things done. And so I think that could be smart. And by the way, I've learned from leading businesses long enough that sometimes you have roles that you think are really critical, and then you eliminate them and you realize that nothing changes. I mean, just like literally, it's not personal. There was a person in the middle that like literally everything still gets done. It's like, whoa. So I think when you get a company to their size, they have to kind of keep looking at that. By the way, the market rewards this. So he has to be, he has had the lowest performing of the Mag 7 stocks this year. At some point, they have to start returning to shareholders. So he's got a job to do. He's got to balance that. But culture, this could be good for both culture. This could be bad for culture. As a quick note, though, there was also that Anthropic Trainium news. That was great news. I continue, though, Pat, to just say this very simply. It's not entirely yet an indicator of success for any chip company that sells out. Right now, it's all hands on deck. Every chip that can be built is being sold. This, by the way, is why I said Qualcomm will sell everything it builds. Intel, we heard this last week. Even their CPUs for Xeon and older nodes are selling. It's like because cloud companies are looking at how to improve their footprints of CPU data centers right now. And it's like every chip that can be made is being sold. Having said that, I think you tweeted something like, don't rule out Trainium. I totally agree with that. Multi-generation, as we know, what did it take TPU? About 3 generations, 3, 4 was where it really started to show. So we're right there at that point now. So obviously Anthropic went all in on TPU. It's going all in on Trainium. It's all in on Nvidia because they actually just can't get enough compute. So it's part of win to me, Pat. I don't know what you think. It was partially a win to me. It was also partially just an indicator of how much demand there is for all this, every chip that can be built right now.
Yeah, I already talked about it. You were texting somebody when I was talking about it. So
did I do that? Did I double down?
No, I've already commented on Anthropic.
You know what? Sometimes I zone out. It's my.
Let's hit this.
How was my take? Was it pretty good?
Yeah, it was.
Because the audience got it twice. So
our take was similar. Yeah.
I want to share when the audience got it twice. They really lean in. All right, quickly, Pat. You did the Google Public Sector event. What's hot?
Yeah, so Google, particularly related to military stuff, they really hadn't leaned into. In fact, until TK came, they weren't doing anything there. And I got to tell you, they absolutely brought it. One of the best examples I've seen of agents, Gemini for government. So let's say we're at we're using OpenAI and we tap something in. You pull the poll down. What data do you want to use? Is it email? Is it SAP? Is it? And then you go in and you create an agent. I created an agent in about 7 minutes on this, and I couldn't believe it. Now they say that they're gonna send me some stuff where I can do that, but it's really good. Like, it's really good, and Google is one of the only companies to really lean into on-prem with GDC. Lockheed Martin, right, is doing a on-prem air-gapped AI using Gemini. I don't know what the hardware is. It's probably Dell, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing with them. The last thing that they had in the keynote was the Joint Chiefs of Staff, 4-star general reports to Trump, talking about the mission, and that is so not Google, and I loved it. I loved it. I met with the CEO of Google Public Sector. Check out the 3 videos I shot there as well.
Appreciate you doing that, by the way. Next week, I'm going to go solo while you're off in Europe gallivanting, being fancy. But I do appreciate you taking one for the team on that one. I'm sure they came out great. I'll just mention that there was a mini Azure outage, nothing like the AWS one. Don't think we need to make a ton of attention, but I think watching these is going to be an interesting thing. You had tweeted a few times when you saw some sites struggling, but we've got a lot of earnings to cover, and we still got to do a quick flip here. So here's what we're going to debate, Pat, is that, the government's taking stakes. There's a lot of people that say that's not capitalism. If the government starts taking stakes in companies, there was a thing about quantum a week ago. We obviously know what's happening in AI, rare earths, possibly other energy plays. So should the government be taking stakes in the future of technology and the future of energy and other critical industries? You all know me. I'm a pure socialist, Pat.
Oh my gosh, I was just going to say that.
I want government control over everything. I just do not think that capitalism works, and I do not think the people have the ability to build businesses. We must depend on our government for everything. Okay, that's complete nonsense. But what is not complete nonsense is in every era, there are certain industries that are just too important to fail. The U.S. government has always had ways and means of making these kinds of participative actions and contributions into industries that are critical. But in the past, we've done it in ways that are actually, in my opinion, more socialist than the ways that we could do them. What am I saying, for instance? Well, the way we do grants, for instance. We give grants to companies, and then we never ask for them to repay. So they get to use grants for research and things that we think are important industries. Maybe it's AI, maybe it was quantum, maybe it was APIs for pharmaceuticals, maybe it's rare earths and fracking and drilling for energy. And we basically just give this money away. We give it away, no strings attached. We could say there might be strings, but there's never strings. No one ever pays Uncle Sam back. And they get to basically use the taxpayer money to build their enterprises at scale and work on projects that oftentimes end up looking like the rail system in California that's built, 10 feet of track for $1.5 billion. But the difference here is these are existential. So let's just start with something like AI. Leading the world in AI means leading the economy, the global economy, for the next 3, 4, 5 decades at the very least. We don't even know what superintelligence and AGI might look like, but just AI alone is going to control the future of the world. This means the energy, this means the data center, this means the infrastructures. And by the way, this means the ability to manufacture leading edge chips. So taking an equity stake in Intel when you have no other option in the United States to build leading edge AI chips was the necessity. We had to show that we would back, just like TSMC did when it got government funding early on and has been backed through not only dollars given to TSMC, but a number of other subsidies. We needed to do the same thing for Intel. The CHIPS Act did not work that well. And the bottom line that makes this a very simple decision is returning value to shareholders. Now, where I don't agree is the government should not take a stake and take a board seat. They should not have decisive controlling action over these entities. And that, of course, will always be in question. But the way we've done deals so far, the government is not actively taking a stake in the sense that they're going to sit on boards or drive decision making. But what they are saying is, hey, we want to put dollars into the critical industries that we believe are important for our long-term survivability, success, and prosperity here in the United States. Right now, every one of the bets they've made so far, rare earths, AI, chip manufacturing, and also in quantum, which could be existential with things like breaking quantum encryption that could cause massive fraud and issues within the financial systems are all critical industries. Doing the same thing in categories like drug development, cancer research. I also believe the government should take a stake, but we shouldn't do it through grants. We shouldn't do it through tax subsidies. What we should do it through is investments like a sovereign wealth fund that backs companies that can help us get to where we need to go. And then when these companies succeed, the government has a better balance sheet, has the opportunity to cash out on that success, reinvest those dollars, and return value to shareholder. It's very simple. We really aren't doing anything different. We're just doing it smarter now.
Oh, my little commie bestie. That's so cute. I love it. Yeah. Let's just nationalize everything while we're at it, you know? Love it. So, seriously here. I think in markets that are in oligopolies or monopolies like foundries and rare earth, it makes sense. There's literally 2 rare earth material companies, and there's 1 U.S. foundry that does leading edge with IP, and that's Intel. That makes sense. You have a tremendous amount of companies that are doing great. IonQ doing great. Cutting deals left and right and driving, real revenue with not just research grants, but from auto companies, as an example. I mean, heck, you attended IBM's Quantum event. They're certainly not struggling. So who would the government actually invest in, right? If they were, and my God, your choice of getting it wrong. When you have about 20 different companies in the mix here, oh my gosh, what if some, special qubits, there are probably 4 different qubit standards out there. What are you gonna invest in? You're gonna invest in all of them. So, and you invest in all of them, you're really not investing in any of them. So I think we should be doing, like we do with science. This should be part of the Science Act, not the CHIP Act, right? Tax credits, prize challenges, procurement pilots. So equity certainly is the best way to buy a seat at the table, but picking who you would invest in, you're going to be wrong unless you invest in 10 companies. And then, what are you actually achieving with that? So I'm done. Win. Let's move on.
Do you believe that? Was that your real take?
Yes. Yeah, I don't think the government should be investing in this.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so far behind, so far ahead of the Chinese on this. It's not even funny.
On which, AI?
On quantum.
Oh. Well, I mean, obviously they have potentially to be able to filter through the for sure. I still think I prefer, like with Intel, getting a return. I just, the grants money of the CHIPS Act was all just going to get burned, and only potential winners would be shareholders of the company, including, and could be the US. But yeah, I think that the problem is the modality that people think we don't do this now. I think there's a lot of unpacking DARPA and different ways that money gets filtered to companies that we think are interesting that never gets repaid. It's all taxpayer money. Anyways, we've got a ton, Pat, of earnings this week. It was a super mega killer earnings week. And, we just had a GTC in the middle of it and a bunch of other news to splash. But Pat, you want to do a little Bulls and Bears?
Let's dive in, buddy.
All right. Well, I'm glad there weren't very, very many earnings. Let's just do the super fast review of two items, and then let's hit the earnings things.
Okay. I want to make sure you've got the time.
Yeah, that's why I'm going really fast. Fed cuts rates. No surprise here. Powell basically said data center like 55 times on the call. Basically said it's not a bubble. It is a secular thing, which is interesting from the Fed. That's my interpretation, not his words exactly. Did talk about job softness and weakness and potential risks related job. And also threatened that they might not cut rates further, which seemed to create a bit of a consternation, but also said they're going to end quantitative tightening, which means the printers are going to come back on soon, guys. Like, it's crazy. We're up this high and we're talking about printing money again when inflation still hasn't been beat entirely. But I think we all agree at this point, we're just going to try to outgrow it. We talked about the OpenAI valuation, the $1 trillion, Pat. I don't think you and I have much to say. I think it's insane. Like if OpenAI is worth $1 trillion and Nvidia is worth 10, at least, like there's no way that they're worth $1 trillion, because you remember Meta is only worth like 1.5. Do you think $1 trillion is crazy?
No, it's completely bonkers.
Okay.
Can you imagine the PE? They don't make any money.
You can't. There is no PE. There's no earnings. There's no earnings. It's incredible.
It's like infinite.
Yeah, well then, like, what's Google worth? Anyways, I can't, like, I'm the most bullish guy I know, maybe other than your friend Dan Ives that you were on with yesterday. Nice job. I'm the most bullish out there. I'm the most not a bubble guy out there right now. Like, but at the same time, like, if there is a bubble, that is where the bubble is. It's like OpenAI's. I started drooling. I got so excited, Pat. OpenAI's value is you got to make $1. I mean, you can't be worth $1 trillion if you can't make $1, Pat. That means your company's like 30 trillion at this point in terms of how much more money you make than he makes. Okay,
buddy, can't wait.
So Nvidia got 5 trillion. We've kind of hit on that. Anything interesting about that to you? Just, I think we hit that pretty well with GTC.
I think we hit that already.
All right. Well, then let's do the mega rundown of earnings. I'll hit. We're going to hit all the mega Mag 7s, but first just ServiceNow. Pat, ServiceNow, I did talk to Bill McDermott. Another Rule of 50 quarter. So while enterprise SaaS and enterprise software has been beaten up to death, ServiceNow just continues to perform. It's steady, consistent, strong performance. Fastest growing, the only scale enterprise software company that's breaking Rule 50 right now. So a lot of credit to ServiceNow for doing this. Their generative AI number is only like $500 million right now when they talk about that number. But Bill said something really profound to me. He said, effectively, we are a workflows company. Workflows, automation. So we are effectively, every dollar of our revenue is actually enterprise AI. And that's why I keep saying that I think the repositioning for ServiceNow, sitting with a company like Palantir, possibly even with an IBM, where their software kind of sits, is that they are the enterprise AI software platform companies now. And that's where these companies all want to be. So really good quarter from ServiceNow.
Yeah, every CIO conversation I've had over the last 18 months pretty much is narrowing in on workflows as the common denominator of what to go in and fix. You can create something brand new, or you can use a company like ServiceNow who has done workflows for years. Many HR workflows are already top-ended by ServiceNow, connecting systems like Workday and SAP, and add that to ITSM. So the difference here is even though there's only $500 million in AI revenue, they're doing so well in their other businesses, and that's a two-bagger here. So the new areas that they're running into plus AI is really the story for this company.
Yeah. Positive, Pat. Okay. Alphabet, Google. For those of you that don't realize it's Alphabet, Google. What do you think?
Ads and cloud beat, debunking the whole AI cannibalizes search meme. At least for now. I'll admit I am surprised, right, that they keep the ads going. Plus AI overview. Congrats to those guys. But when you've got the founder coming in and coding, okay, and pulling together the team, I mean, that's pretty freaking awesome, right? Cloud up 34%, backlog up 49 billion in 3 months to $155 billion. Remember when there was discussion before TK came in on Google Cloud going away? I think everybody is hiding about those statements. So TK and the team have done a great job, and let's not forget that Google has been doing AI bigger than every other company, maybe with the exception of Amazon, that did a lot in machine learning.
Yeah, absolute smash out of the park beat from Google. Great result. The market loved it. Victory lap. I've been, sometimes you laugh at how much I've been pounding on the Google train, but I just never believed, and maybe it's the millennial / Gen Xer in me that hasn't fully committed myself to ChatGPT yet. And I just don't see I don't see, and the numbers now are continuing to indicate that it's just not fatal for them. And so great job. You've been very, very consistent. Let's talk about Meta. Meta was a bit of a weird one because they had this one-time tax deal, non-cash, and their earnings, instead of being like $6, they were like $1.50, but they actually would have been $7. They would have beaten if they didn't take the one-time tax. But this one was all about Mark's Capex. I guess there's a little bit of a difference when your Capex is all spending on your own build as opposed to like building for capacity for others. But Mark has said this quarter after quarter after quarter, and this is the easiest way I justify it, is he'd rather overbuild than underbuild. These CEOs that, by the way, every one of them raised Capex. Google, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, they all committed more Capex because they all know it's existential for these companies to win in AI, to win, to have the technology to be able to deliver to capacity. And by the way, every company that hasn't been able to, Pat, including like Amazon, early on, underbuilding, look what happened to them. They're finally getting out of a hole that took them multiple years because they undercommitted early. These other CEOs are smarter. The market sometimes whiplashes you a little bit. I think my speculation is the dip will be gobbled up. They issued a bond, by the way, a $25 billion bond.
Yes. I think your thesis was that, hey, I think somebody knew about this.
Well, right? These are the things. Anytime you do an issuance, generally there's a sell. It creates, even though because these people get paid first before the shareholders get paid. And generally speaking, when that happens, it creates that negative. I bet you over the next few weeks, you'll see a lot of that. Again, assuming the rally continues and the bottom doesn't fall out, you'll see a lot of that gap get filled. But I think, Pat, Meta is the user of AI. They make freaking fortune using the technology. So when everyone's like, no one's using AI except ChatGPT, it's like, Meta uses AI. Every stupid ad you see, every time that you go on there and the thing, you and I are talking about peptides. And now all I see on my freaking Facebook are peptide ads. Like, this company is using AI to make everything super personalized. It's a wonderful example of how AI has infiltrated our lives without our permission and is being used by mega companies to make mega buku dollars. Any ad on Meta?
No, I mean, listen, from a cost basis, they're just uncompetitive related to Google, who's rocking the TPU for every internal workload, right? MTIA is a nice start. I like the way you talked about what was going on with Trainium is you need, 4 or 5 turns to crank out something exceptional. Meta did an acquihire, and, I'm hearing MTIA 5 is even, better. But my guess is they're also buying a lot more GPUs than Google is to be able to accomplish what they need to accomplish. And rule of thumb that I'm hearing, Daniel, is an XPU is about 30 to 50% less cost at the same performance level, albeit a little bit less flexible.
Absolutely. All right, we got a couple more. We are getting close to our time, Pat, but we got to give some credit where credit's due. Microsoft.
Yeah, so absolutely crushed it with Azure. AI contributions actually rising. And here's another company that's using AI. This is not just for OpenAI. It's for Copilot that they're monetizing. Seat ARPU uplifts, a big medium-term driver here. Securities and Windows, right, look really good. I was really surprised that the stock went down afterwards, particularly in the very good way that Microsoft talked about how they were looking at Capex, which was basically, we're not going to add Capex unless we absolutely know that we can monetize this long term. And then the stock goes down. Didn't understand that.
Pat, the down and dirty was that quarter was freaking amazing. Like, absolutely 40% Azure growth. Your book, you're giving out they say $400 billion in visibility in orders, and these are orders in the book, not even like what they think this is actually. Forget it. Visibility is the wrong word. $400 billion of booked business not even including things they think they're going to book into the future. They're building out capacity fast. My biggest beef with them, frankly, Pat, is just they need to speed up their own infrastructure development. They are going to get margin hit by the fact that they are 100% dependent right now. They do not have the competitive answer to Trainium and TPU. And I think that's going to cause some strain on margins down the line. We'll see, but that's the area I think they need to have they need that choice, that selection. Why are you laughing?
I said the exact same thing 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, I'm just agreeing with
They're
you.
aligned. Okay, all right.
Sorry, am I allowed to not have the same opinion as you?
Of course you are.
Yeah, that wasn't even me zoning out. I heard you say it. I'm just doubling down. Like when people wanted me to nitpick, people wanted me to nitpick it. I had to nitpick it. I nitpicked it when I talked to them about it too. I'm like,
by the way, hey, I want to say that Brad Gerstner, between as he's talking, he's looking at his phone. It was amazing. Like, I thought that was just people like you, but maybe it's just rock stars, and maybe Daniel, this pretends to you becoming a billionaire someday.
I'm just trying to cross the 250 line for now. Cash. Like, I don't want some paper.
Is that $250,000, right?
Yeah, $250 million, $1,000. Okay. $250. I want to be worth $250 when I grow up. All right. Two more quick ones. And Apple, Pat, you went on CNBC, talked a little Apple yesterday. It kind of did a quick dip, and then it did a dip and rally.
It did. And guess what? Apple's down today. Imagine that. They listened, they internalized the call, and they are one of the only markers that is down today, and they're down big. I called it. Sorry, Dan Ives. Sorry about that. And
is the call because of the low iPhone number? Was it the low iPhone number? Because they missed it.
So what they are doing is investors are piecing together the low iPhone number. What Tim Cook said that he should have been able to ship more, but supply chain challenges. In the same breath said, hey, we're going to have an amazing holiday quarter. I think they're piecing it together, and investors just didn't see enough evidence of what were those supply chain challenges. Why didn't they put more in there, particularly when it came to tariffs? Like, I'm wondering if they have India iPhone issues in there. But yeah, I mean, they crushed it. Services are 60% of the iPhone revenue, Daniel. And that is absolutely amazing. Like I said on the show, John asked me, what are the growth areas? I think sustained cheaper Macs plus buying a movie studio is, I think, the future for Apple. Nobody cares about Apple Intelligence. I will cop to, I did make a mistake on Apple Intelligence. I did some post research on this. Maybe 20% of the phones in the installed base can run Apple Intelligence. I thought it was more, but it is low. I'm still skeptical if Apple can pull off something that's truly compelling for the brand new Siri.
Got it. Yep. I don't have much to add on Apple. I came out, I said the low iPhone wouldn't sit well, and then I got a lot of from people because it went up a minute later. I still think when you have a new launch, I know it's not their main iPhone quarter, but like when you have a new launch, you want to see a strong reaction. It seems like they had one product do well, and the rest of that new lineup has not done particularly well. That was kind of the overwhelming channel checks, and everyone came into it. They missed the number by a lot. I mean, it was like over 49. There was like over 50 million was the expectation or whatever, and it was like they missed by a whole million point something units, which is a lot of units. People might say.
Daniel, how do you have supply chain issues in the first week? Like, how does that happen? Right? It was they shipped for a week for the quarter. So I totally just don't understand that.
Well, that's what I mean. That was the most strongest selling week of the new device, because that was the first week of shipments. Should have been like the blowout week of getting stuff out. But next quarter, I do expect it will be better for iPhone. We'll see. But there's a lot of reasons to believe that. Last one, Pat, Amazon. Look, this was the one I think that was on, because what happened was like after Google, Microsoft, Meta, and especially Meta kind of spooked everybody on the more Capex. I think people wanted to see like, was it all share shift? With Amazon having the biggest cloud, was the share shift coming over from Amazon to Microsoft and Google rather than actually sort of Amazon growing? Their numbers had been down into the teens. They're growing at half the rate. Granted, they're bigger. A lot of people kind of struggle with those two things, but they're growing at a much slower rate. They needed to be over 20. I kept saying they need to be over 20. They gave 20, like 20.2. And this is the first like kind of reacceleration of the AWS business since 22. So it had been slowing and now it's reaccelerating. It seems to me that some of the capacity, Project Rainier came online. They needed to show that they'd kind of overcome the hangover from the slow start with Nvidia. The Trainium success, I think they said they're 150% quarter on quarter with it sold out. Was it through 26, Pat? Through 26? Basically, they all their so these are some good tea leaves that they're starting to turn the corner. And of course, the commerce business overperformed. Ads business is doing great. But Pat, to me, this quarter was all about AWS.
It's amazing to me that people really discounted AWS here. If we truly believe that we can't get enough capacity, why on earth would people have said that it wouldn't have been AWS? There was a piece of research that came out of a company called Data Center Hawk. Planned self-build expansion in terms of gigawatts. Guess who's number one by an amazing amount? It's AWS at 28 gigawatts, Microsoft at 21, Google at 12, Meta at 11. Okay. And, you know, I'm going to do a victory lap. I was right. And all the bears out there about Amazon were wrong. And we'll see what they have up their sleeve.
Yep, absolutely. And Pat, we went long. We went strong. We're missing important nonsensical meetings within our businesses right now to be here with you all. Hope you appreciate that. It's Friday here, but it might be Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We don't know because we don't know when the producers are going to get this thing out. But having said that, what a week in tech. We appreciate everybody being part of our community. It's been a heck of a month. Pat put October in the books. It's Halloween. I'm dressing up as a gym bro tonight because why wouldn't I?
Yeah, buddy.
Stay strong, stay long, travel safe, my bestie. And everybody out there, we appreciate you. See you all later. Bye.